When it comes to doing monthly themes in my reading journal, I very much try to change the colour palette from month to month, mainly because on my year-long tracker of what I've been reading and when I've been reading it, I like to use a colour from the theme to colour in that tracker. Because I want the months to be distinct from each other, picking a different colour every month makes a lot of sense for that. And oddly, I already feel like I'm running out of colours, even though I know that isn't the case. For January, we went with a frosty blue. For February, it was more of a red-pink tone. March was purple. April was yellow. May was green. And for June, we're going with teal. So in the interest of using a different colour, for July, we're going with morally grey. I did want July to be kind of a darker theme anyway, in part because we're getting into the winter months, so the sun feels like it's barely up most of the time. And also because July is my best friend's birthday month, and her favourite reading genre is dark romance. For the decoration, I mainly used a collection of some black washi tapes, some gothic looking light and lantern stickers, and for all of the headers I used a gothic font, that one being called Chomsky. It is probably my favourite gothic font. And yes, I could totally do the lettering myself, but it would have taken me so much longer than it did to just type them up, print them off, and stick them in. To go along with grey being the main colour that I'm working with, I also wanted some supplementary colours to bring in elements from the stickers, so I colour matched as well as I could with my pens, which means that this time around I'm primarily using Ohuhu markers rather than Tombos, which is certainly different for me. Tombos are usually my go-to. Of course, all of the materials I've used have been linked in the description box below, but in terms of this first page we're working on, this is what I call my month in media, which just gives me an overview of when I was consuming what. So which days of the month was I reading each individual book? Which days of the month was I watching certain TV shows? Or did I play certain games, watch movies? The left-hand side is a section to write out what those pieces of media are, so what are their titles, and also tie those to the tracker that we have on the right-hand side. This time around I did letters A through O, because I've been finding I've been getting up to roughly that point in the alphabet, even though the previous trackers I've been doing have gone all the way to Y. I know a lot of people typically use a calendar style for this layout, rather than a running log like I have, and I did try that for my first month in this journal, but I found it didn't necessarily give me an accurate representation of how long things actually took me. I found that while that calendar grid layout was good for indicating the start and end day for any piece of media I was consuming, because I don't necessarily read every day, it meant that having a running highlighted line from the first day to the last day can make it seem like it took longer than it actually did for me to finish that book. On this style though, I just colour in the days that I did read, so for the books where it may have taken me 7 days from start to end, I can still see that maybe I only read 3 of those days. In the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter so much, but it makes my brain happy. On the right hand side of this layout though, this is where I'm going to be putting in my challenges. In particular, the challenges that I've set for myself in terms of my reading and watching for the entire of the year, not just July. Normally I would put a header on this layout, something like challenge accepted, but because of the spacing that I decided on for both the decoration and the book covers that I'll end up sticking in here, it meant that it wasn't quite gonna fit. I'm not really that sad about it. I know what this page is, and because I use it every month, it doesn't really need to have a title. In terms of the structure of the layout though, we can kind of think of this one as being in half diagonally, so going from the top left corner to the bottom right, where the upper half is going to be filled with decoration, and the lower half is going to be filled with information, or the pieces of media that I'll be consuming to fulfill my challenges. I have 6 slots for the challenges, one being for our book club book, because I have a personal goal to make sure that I read all of the book club books this year, one for the Year of Goober challenge, which is the year-long challenge run by my book club. I have a spot for my peer pick, which is where I have 12 recommendations from friends and family members that I'm trying to consume across the year, one spot for the Year in Aldia challenge, which is run by G of Book Roast, and then 2 spots dedicated to my 25 in 25. Technically speaking, I do have 50 in 25, because I have 25 watchables and 25 readables, and some months I'll pick one from each list, some months I'll pick 2 watchables, other months I'll pick 2 readables, really just depends on what I feel like at the time. At the moment though, we're just decorating the layout and setting up the general structure, and to indicate where I'm going to be sticking the book covers, I like to put in little corner pieces. I make these slightly narrower than what the book cover will actually end up as, mainly because I don't want to see them when I come to put the book covers in. I know some people draw an actual outline for where they're going to put the book cover, but I don't like the outlines to be there after the fact. Rather than doing a full box, I find that just putting the corners in gives me enough direction to know where I need to stick things down. I know that the washi tape on this layout probably looks a little bit strange at the moment, but because I'm going to be sticking those book covers in, there's going to be sections of it that are covered up, and it's mainly just to fill in the gaps between the covers of the media. We're going to be sticking those ones in a little bit later though, so flipping on over, and the first page we have in this spread is going to be dedicated to our book club read. Our book club is called the Bujo Buddies Book Club because it's run by me and my Bujo buddies, Rachel and Monica. You don't actually have to be a bullet journalist to partake in the book club. It's more so just because it's hosted by your Bujo buddies. This layout though is just a space for me to highlight what our book club read for the month was, like what's the title, what's the author, and also record the read theme. For each month we have one of the hosts put forward the read theme, and the other two put forward suggestions of what we could read as aligned with that. The only exception to this though is birthday months, and because July is Rachel's birthday month, she has picked both the read theme and she's going to be picking the options for July's book. At the time of recording this, those haven't quite been selected yet, but literally tomorrow she's going to be putting up the poll, and I'm really eager to see what she ended up selecting. The read theme she ended up picking was a movie-worthy romance, so if you have any recommendations of books that you think contain a movie-worthy romance, let me know in the comments. Even though I have literally no say as to what goes on the poll this month, I'm always looking for new recommendations, and romance is one of the genres I quite enjoy. The other sections that I have on here though are an other recs space, so other recommendations that we got from our book club members, the ones that didn't end up in the poll, and also a spot for discussion questions so that when we have our book club meeting at the end of the month, we have some things to talk about. The bottom left corner also gets a little spot designated to the runner-up, so whichever of the options didn't win the poll, because I still want to acknowledge the fact that it got to be in the poll even if it wasn't a winner. Slowly but surely I've been simplifying this book club related layout over the course of this reading journal. It has kept some elements the same, like having a spot for the runner-up, having the general information for the winner, the space for the questions, but for February and March I gave myself 2 full pages for it, and I just did not need that much space. In fact, I didn't end up filling in most of it. And for April, May, and June, I had a couple of additional sections, like spaces for the ratings, both mine, the book clubs, the Goodreads average, and also just some statistics from the book club, which I guess kind of initially had the intention of recording how many people came to the meeting or how many people read the book or something like that, but it's kind of hard to grab that statistic unless you're paying attention to it very closely. Like, you have to be in the meeting seeing how many people are actually there, or checking the Discord space to see how many people have reacted to the post or interacted in the channel. Because it's not something I could record accurately, I just decided to get rid of that section, and a similar idea to the rating space. I don't really need it because I am gonna have a space in my reading journal where I write down my general thoughts, give my rating, and if I feel like including any of those averages or other statistics when I do that, I can put it over there. On the right hand side of this layout though, this is what we call the pile of possibilities, and this is for anything else that I might want to read or watch or play during the month. They don't necessarily have to be related to the book club or any of my challenges, it's just stuff that's on my radar and I might want to consume next. This is a layout that ends up looking really sparse before I go and put any of the book covers or movie posters, TV show posters into the layout. And again, I'm just going to use those little corner pieces to indicate where I need to stick those in. They also are a really good indication of how much space I want them to take up, and thus how I need to size those so that I can print them off correctly and stick them in. If you were wondering how I get the little covers that go into my reading journal, we do have a separate video on that. It's linked in the description box below, but if that's something you're curious about, I'll remind you again at the end of the video. I'm gonna have space on this one for roughly 6 pieces of media, and at this stage I'm not really too sure what they are yet, so again, if you have any recommendations, please do let me know. I feel like my current logged TBR is not filling me with a lot of joy, so I'd be very eager to add some new things. I probably also should set up a proper TBW, like to be watched list, because I end up seeing trailers and like ads for different TV shows and movies and such, and I think to myself, oh yeah, I should watch that, that looks really cool, and then promptly forget about it because I don't record that information anywhere. It's not a very sensible system, it's definitely one that I need to remedy, but flipping over, the next layout we're going to be setting up is my month in review. This is always one of my favorite layouts in my reading journals, mainly because I just love stats, and this is where I get to put in little graphs of how many different types of media I consumed, what formats I was reading, what genres I was reading. Essentially, this layout is the main reason that we have monthly setups in the reading journal, because I wanted to make this spread. While for the last couple of months, this one has looked pretty much the same every single time, I decided that for July I wanted to change things up. Not majorly, just a little bit. So effectively similar sections, but a slightly different arrangement and a slight tweaking of how much information in each of those sections. Rather than putting the header for the page on the top left, I actually opted to put it on the top right, which meant that all of the information on that left-hand page could just spread out a little bit. There are 5 main sections that I have on this layout, the first one being the media breakdown. This is where I write down the number of books, movies, TV shows, and games I consume across the month, and also put in a little bar graph to show the relative amounts. While writing the number in is fine, and like, yes, I appreciate that 5 is bigger than 3, it's just nice to have the visual to go with it. I think it makes it look a little bit more interesting. The section that goes underneath this though is called highlights, where I get to pick out 4 pieces of media that across the month stood out in some way. It could be because they were really fun to consume, it could be because I rated them really highly, or it could just be because they're memorable in some other way. For instance, maybe it was a date night with Vogel, and possibly the movie sucked, but we had a really good time anyway. The bottom of the left-hand page is where I put quotes from the media that I consumed. Mainly it's from books. Every so often it's from a movie or a TV show, and I don't think I've ever had one from a game. I feel like I should remedy that as well. But I don't like to collect a lot of quotes, I just picked the ones that stood out because they were special. Maybe it kind of resonated with me, maybe it totally made me crack up and I just wanted to remember how funny that book or movie was. I just noted down there along with where it came from. The right hand side though has the other 2 sections, one of them being the at a glance section, which is just for a collection of statistics, and the other one being for graphs, those ones being for formats, genres, and ratings. This is the space that I feel like got the most change up because we moved the title over to that right hand side, and then to accommodate that I also changed the orientation of my little pie graphs. Rather than having the pie graphs run down the right hand side, I'm going to instead have them running along the bottom. Thankfully the spacing of those will be fine for that, but I also wanted to change up my at a glance section because previously I have had my average rating, the number of pages I read, the number of minutes I watched, how many series I consumed for books, and how many standalones, but I wanted to make this just about books rather than about all types of media. So the ones I'm going with are still average rating, still number of pages read, but I also included how many new to me authors I read from, how many rereads I did, and then how many series and how many standalones like I've had previously. Another change that I've made is that instead of specifying what genres are going to be on my little pie graphs at the start of the month, I'm actually leaving the labels off from those, and I'm going to wait until the end of the month to see what genres I do read. Previously I've had self-help, romance, fantasy, and other, but in May I read a thriller and also just a general non-fiction, which meant that both of those ended up in the other category, and I think I'd rather break it down a little bit more as I start to explore new genres. For ratings, I ended up putting in the color code, but I haven't specified what star ratings will actually be on the graph because I don't know at this stage what ratings I'm going to be giving my books. Normally I'm pretty much assured to have a 4 and a 4.5, but a 5-star is never guaranteed, and a 3.5 or lower could slip in there. That bottom right corner is looking a little bit barren right now, but it is going to end up with those pie graphs. Similar to the space in the media breakdown section, that's going to be where I put in my bar graph, so I need to leave that space open. Flipping back though, and it's time to lock in some of my challenges for the month of July. For the Year of Goober challenge, I've decided to go with the prompt that is out of your comfort zone, and I'm going to be reading Quicksilver by Callie Hart. I have tried to read this before and put it down, did not finish it at the time, much to my friends' dismay because they ended up rating it like 5 stars, but it's just so long and it feels daunting, so I feel like that one is out of my comfort zone. For my peer pick though, this one is going to be a watchable, and I'm going to be watching Death Parade, which was recommended to me by Rachel. I figured that because it's her birthday month, I should go with one of the things she recommended me. So in knowing pretty much nothing about it, I am interested to see how it goes. For the Year in Aldia challenge, my path has taken me to the prompt of reading a book entirely in the PM hours, which I've decided to go with Devourer of Men by Nikki St. Crow. I read pretty much exclusively in the PM hours, so I don't see this as being difficult. So I decided to pick a book that I'm also using for the Aurelium challenge, or the Magical Readathon, because I typically do the spring semester books across multiple months, not just the one that the challenges run in. For 25 and 25, I've only selected one so far, and that's going to be Knock at the Cabin. I've been meaning to watch this one for ages, and I think I'm doing well to avoid any kind of spoilers, but I just don't trust myself on the internet. It's gonna pop up one day and I'm gonna spoil something and I'm gonna annoy myself, so I probably should just watch this one while it's still relatively unspoiled. I still have to pick the second of my 25 and 25 and see what the result for our book club book is, but flipping over, if you have any recommendations that I can add to my pile of possibilities for July, I would love to hear them. As said, my TBR hasn't been filling me with a lot of joy recently, and I think I just need to add some new life to both my TBR and the TBW that I haven't officially set up. So any and all recommendations of things that you have enjoyed recently are very welcome. As soon as I saw that list, I can print off the little covers to stick into my reading journal, but if you wanted to know how I do that process, then this video is the next one to check out. I show you not only how I do it with Microsoft Word, but also how you can do it with Google Docs or with Canva, so click or tap on that one and I'll see you over there.